Hi everyone, we're here to do the review of The Next Generation. We've been doing season 1 and now we are at episode 11, Haven. And I'm joined here by Alan.
Hello.
Namir.
Hi.
And Lola.
Hi.
And we're all Star Trek fans. Some of us are more Trekkie nerds than others. Alan's the Trekkiest of them all, and Namir, he kind of registers on the Trek scale, but not so much.
You liked the first season a little too much.
I think I'm a bit more than just like the casual Trekkie. I'm kind of like up there a little bit.
I just keep calling you that so you'll say something. Defend your honor. It's only been 10 episodes and now you're like, wait a minute, I don't think I'm casual.
I'm a huge fan.
Is that what you said after the 10th date with your wife? You're like, wait a minute, I don't think this is casual.
Yeah, it was pretty awkward because she was like, no, it's totally casual. What are you talking about?
As the Enterprise arrives at Planet Haven for some R&R, Yar interrupts Riker's downtime for assistance on a simple security matter she should have been able to handle all by herself. They beam aboard a weird box with a face, and since Yar has apparently never heard of a tricorder, she leans down to look at it and is startled when the box comes alive and announces Troi's upcoming wedding. Apparently, for some reason, Troi's mother, Lwaxana, and Wyatt, a man Troi was genetically bonded to marry, along with his parents, just happened to be waiting on this planet for Troi to arrive so that they can have the wedding ceremony. Riker sulks about the wedding plans even though he's made no attempt to rekindle his past romance with Troi. And Wyatt seems disappointed that the girl he sees in his dreams and has been drawing since childhood, thinking it was Deanna, was not her at all. Lwaxana and the Miller family bicker constantly, making one wonder why these two families agreed to this bonding in the first place. A whole lot of soap opera-esque scenes unfold, including a pre-wedding dinner where Data revels in the opportunity to observe all sorts of fun humanoid behaviors like excessive drinking, petty bickering, and angry outbursts. Soon, an alien plague ship shows up over Haven, scaring the inhabitants. The elitist Haven politician asks the Enterprise to get rid of them before they land and infect them all with space leprosy. One of the space lepers ends up being the girl Wyatt was dreaming of all his life. It seems awful hard to believe that all these people just happened to meet at exactly the same time, but that's what happens. And Wyatt decides to use his doctor skills to help the space lepers and beams himself over to be with the girl of his dreams and work to cure them, leaving Troi free to return to her normal life and ridding Picard of her mom's annoying, entitled presence on his ship.
Let's start with Lola, just for a change. Lola, what did you think of this episode?
My reaction to this episode is kind of the same as all the other episodes, where after it was done, I didn't find it memorable necessarily. Okay, so the title of the episode is called Haven because the planet's called Haven, but I feel like the planet is like really inconsequential. Like after at a certain point, it stops becoming relevant to the story because I guess like the Trellians are trying to go to Haven, but also at the end they're like, oh, we came here for Wyatt, and so I feel like there could have been a different setup. Anyway. And also, they never really explained why Wyatt like dreamt of that lady, but I guess we can get into it.
I thought for sure that I wasn't gonna like it because from what I remember, I didn't like it the first time I watched it, and then the second time I watched it, I actually liked it. It was not one of the. It wasn't as bad as I remember it being. It was actually so. I think my expectations were lowered. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good episode. There's a couple of things that I can nitpick on, but overall, I really liked it.
I actually enjoyed this one. It's one that I haven't particularly cared for over the years. I've watched it a few times, probably more than a few times. But yeah, this. Yeah, 20 times.
That's the low count. If Alan hasn't seen him after a long time, it's like 25 times, and we're in the triple digits.
But no, I have new reasons now, and I mean we'll get into that. But yeah, I actually enjoy this one. I have lots of nitpicks, but yeah, I actually like this one now. And I say it's one that didn't really play well for me in the past, but yeah, I enjoyed it this time around.
I like this episode. It's not one that I've revisited often. I've only, I think, seen it maybe 3 or 4 times, as opposed to like 75 times for an episode like yesterday's Enterprise. There's some good humor. It's fun and lighthearted, and I like that they don't feel the need to put some random sci-fi B story, like disappearing crew members or something like that. And I've really enjoyed it. I really had a good time watching this episode.
Wasn't like the Trellians the B story? Because I feel like the main story was the fact that Deanna Troi was like going through an arranged marriage, but also at the same time, it's like we have this ship and these people are supposed to be extinct, but here they are.
Yeah, I think it does have an A-B story, but it's not really like a hard sci-fi concept, I feel. And as opposed to later Next Generation episodes where they feel obligated to do like a science fiction B story. For example, in Theory, where Data dates a woman for the first time. The A story is him learning how to date. And then the B story is all these crew members being embedded in bulkheads or whatever.
That was cool.
That was cool. But those two things have nothing to do with each other, other than the fact that she is some sort of torpedo technician, and they're going to use the torpedo as a probe or something. But that's it. Like there's zero relationship with those two stories. And they
so
do
is your issue when the A story and B story don't connect?
Yeah, because I think in good writing, the A and B stories should complement each other, because it just makes the writing stronger and more interesting. And in this case,
I agree.
They both did.
Wait, so are you saying that it didn't in Haven, or it did?
It did. There was an A-B story,
Yeah.
and it worked well together. But what I'm saying is the B story wasn't some random science fiction plot that had nothing to do with the A story.
Yeah, right. And I think Star Trek, like Next Gen, does like multiple storylines in one episode really well. Like they know. Oh, what? They don't? They totally do.
Did you just not hear everything I just said?
No, I didn't. I just tuned you out. You know what? I was doodling. I was drawing stuff.
I want to see your drawing.
It's. I don't know if you can see it. It's a white piece of paper. There you go.
Is it your dream girl?
Yeah. I was drawing Alan.
Have you been thinking of me since you were a small boy?
I was, and you must have been thinking of me at the same time for some reason.
I just can't draw. It's true, but I can't draw, so there's no evidence.
I have seen this face ever since I was a boy.
So, so there are some episodes where the storylines are relatively separate, right? But they always do a good job of tying those storylines back to whatever the larger themes of the episode are. Or, what? Why are you shaking your head?
Because I'm disagreeing, but continue.
Or at least having those storylines cross. Okay, so I don't really remember a lot of the episodes. It'll come. It usually comes back as I watch them. But so far, the episodes in season 1 have been very good at doing that.
So Riker and the holographic women.
Right.
He's just about to unzip his spacesuit there when he gets interrupted.
I was watching the episode with my roommate, right? And then so you see the shot of the woman like doing the instruments, and we cut back to Riker, and we both go ew, just because like there was no because like that's just what Riker does. He just sort of weird.
Yeah, totally. And I think we may have actually like mentioned this before with another episode. I think it was what was it? Justice. Riker's kind of creepy. Like in this first season, like he's got some moments where you're like, I wouldn't trust him with people that I care about.
Well, I mean, he's watching ladies in a hologram on his own time, in his own quarters. I mean, that's
Well,
something
like I
guys
choose
do.
like the way he looks at like the women in question. Like he always has this weird slight smile, and like he'll be like nodding, almost like he's approving, but it's like so uncomfortable, and or like in Justice, like he seemed way too like happy to be there. Like when there was that one woman who hugged him, and he was like smiling, and it's like he's not trying at all to like I don't know be professional and like
Riker is so awkward and unprofessional in the whole episode. He's like sulking and moody, and he's suddenly like, "Fine, go marry that guy," even though he's the one that broke up with Troi and hasn't really given her any attention this whole time. And she has to say to him, like, "Well, you said that you want to be the starship captain, right? Like, I didn't misunderstand." Because if you really don't want to be a starship captain and you want to get married, I'll totally do it.
You can't be married and be a captain.
I guess you can, but he's choosing his career over.
But he's married and a captain in lower decks.
He acted very much like a moody teenage boy in this episode. Like there's a lot of like, oh, just sort of.
Is that how teenage boys act?
Well, we'll come back to that because there's some really good Riker moments and Picard moments. Picard is just kind of like the straight guy, just trying to like deal with all these like moving pieces like constantly through the whole episode. But yeah. I what I thought was funny with Riker with the holographic women was how irritated he was that he was being called to duty. They was like interrupted his hologram viewing time. Like, I'm watching girls playing hearts. What do you want?
That's true. He just could be like a really big patron of the arts. And here we are, calling him like a creepy dude. Yeah, exactly. He could have sponsored those two women and they could have been giving a concert in his honor.
And he's just really proud.
Lowell's like, no.
He's just really proud.
He's just really proud, exactly. So yeah, Riker's interesting because I think his character in the first season is sort of written as young, brash, kind of immature sometimes, and that's been mostly consistent across the first season. But you forget about that because in subsequent seasons he's not really like that, right? And in this first season, a lot of that stuff comes out. So I think it's totally in line with his character, the way he behaves. Mm-hmm. I kind of like that Tom Cruise Top Gun type character, right? So it'll be interesting to see how he changes. So I don't think it was odd of him to react that way to Troi, because he's kind of like, well, I don't want to go out with you, but I also don't want you to be with anybody else, and that makes total sense, that kind of thing. So I kind of liked it because I liked it that they didn't show him in a great light, because I don't think you're actually supposed to feel for him or be on his side in this episode. I think you're supposed to be like, oh, Riker's being a dick.
I agree. I mean, like, my issue with him isn't like him as a character. Like, I think he is in character. Like, he's acting the way he's sort of set up to be. I agree with that. I think I'm more wanting to just attack him as a human being, as if he was real, I mean, because that's how I like to interact with characters.
Yeah, and I think that's a good indication that Next Generation does that really well.
They do it really well.
They make their characters seem real, at least the main characters. They make them seem like three-dimensional people. And a lot of other shows that are in the Star Trek universe, of which I won't name because I bash them basically every episode, don't do that.
Okay.
Does this start with a D?
And a P. A P and a D.
Were you going to say something, Alan?
No.
Odd looking.
I hold a message for Deanna Troi.
I wanted to talk about that whole teaser for Haven, because as much as I do enjoy what comes after, that teaser makes absolutely no sense. Because I don't understand. They approach Haven. There's no mention in Picard's log that they're there for anything other than just R&R. And then we go to the Riker and his harp ladies, and that's fine. Maybe Lowell doesn't think it's fine, but, whatever. He's doing his thing. But then Yar calls him and says, oh, I need your help. And then he gets to the transporter room, and all it is that there's a box being beamed up from the planet. I was like, isn't that her job? Why does she need Riker to clear a package to be beamed up? I feel like she could have handled that herself and didn't need to interrupt his downtime. And then they beam up the box, and for some reason, it's like, oh, that's an odd box, and they don't know anything about her, what it is. And it's a mysterious box, but she doesn't use a tricorder or scan it or anything. She walks up to it and peers at it right close up, which makes no sense. I'm like, if it's something you're wondering, it's weird and you don't know what it is, why wouldn't you use a tricorder to scan it first before sticking your face there? The whole thing is just a setup for Troi to walk into the transporter room for no reason. There's no reason. She just randomly walks into the transporter room. We hear nothing about the wedding up to this point, and then the box comes alive, and Tasha just leans in there just to startle her. It's like, oh,
Well, that's what she is when she gets startled. When she gets startled, she doesn't take her phaser out or something. She goes, ooh.
Yeah, it's like, and then the box talks about the day and rejoice, the wedding is coming, and then it's like, why? It's like there's no explanation. Why is Troy's mother and her potential in-laws and husband to be on this planet? They haven't made any mention of it up to this point, and she acts really surprised. That's oh, it's my wedding. I'm like, but there's no setup for this at all. In Captain Picard's log, they could have said something like, oh, we're here to Troi has some family that she's going to be meeting here. Any mention of that at all? But Troi acts surprised that they're there, and I'm like, they just happen to be here in this planet far out in the middle of nowhere, just waiting for Troi to show up so they can conduct their wedding. I'm like, it's a very bizarre teaser with no. It seems like there's some missing scenes or information there. And I don't know what you guys thought of that, but I just thought the whole teaser was very odd.
You know what I wish had happened during that scene? Because the stinger before they go to the credits is that the trapdoor opens and all the jewels fall out. I wish he had just vomited the jewels instead. Just been bah! And then it goes to the credits.
Now that I think about it, nothing makes sense. You're right.
It didn't bother me at all. But I think we can start filling in the gaps a little bit. I do think that Tasha, she's got a line where she's like, "Oh, they approved it," or it's been cleared by blah blah blah, and then they beam it up. So I just imagine.
Why does she need Riker?
Well, because he's second in command, right? So she doesn't know. I don't know. It's a box with a face. There's no rules here.
Okay, so I have a question, and Alan's not allowed to answer this question.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
You did what?
I'm anticipating your question, but go ahead and ask it.
Do you guys recognize the face in the box?
Yes, I did.
And
it's Quark. It's an interesting. What do you want me to say? Yeah, I recognized him.
It's latex from the last Outpost.
Did you recognize him, Lola?
No. Was Deanna's mom the voice of the computer?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was watching the episode, I was like, she sounds like the computer voice. But my roommate, she was like, okay.
No, don't say it. Think it. Use your mind, not your mouth. Hello, Mother.
Does she talk to herself? Does she talk to the computer?
No, but she just said she was just talking to Wyatt's mother, and the way she said something, I was like, oh, that sounds like the computer.
I think there's another episode. I want to say maybe it's Manhunt in season 2, which is the next episode with Lwaxana Troi, where she talks to the computer. So she's talking to herself.
Hello, computer? Is Commander Riker still on the bridge?
Negative. Riker is currently in holodeck 3.
Holodeck? Where is that?
So just a little trivia. So Armin Shimmerman as as our expert Namir has pointed out, plays the jewel box in this episode. And although in air order, this episode came second, this episode was actually shot after Naked Now. It was the third episode shot. So this is actually technically his first appearance in Star Trek. And when he plays the Ferengi in Last Outpost, that's actually his second time in Star Trek. And the switcheroo of the episodes also accounts for the fact that Troi calls Riker Bill in Naked Now and in this episode, because they shot those two episodes back to back and they hadn't worked that thing out yet. But because of the delay, and I don't know why there was a delay, I suspect because there were a lot of visual effects in this episode and they needed more time. So you got her, like, it's like 7 episodes later, basically, and now she's still calling him Bill, which always seems weird to me.
Bill was concerned that you might be upset that I care deeply for him, too.
Oh.
Well, they used to date, right? Like, I feel like she could still call him a nickname.
I thought he called her, Imzadi.
Imzadi.
Wait, does he call her Imzadi, or does she call him Imzadi? Or do they call each other?
Like, the first time they meet, like in episode 1, she calls him that, like, telepathically. But I think Riker calls her Imzadi, like, physically. Or
so they call
audibly.
each other Imzadi.
Yeah, because it means my beloved, or, like, it's a term of endearment.
Right. It doesn't mean Bill.
Huh?
Namir doesn't like that word.
Don't tell me. You're the captain.
Of course, your daughter has explained your telepathic abilities.
Now, that wasn't telepathy. It was just common sense. Who else would they send to greet me but the captain? Oh, you may carry my luggage.
This is the first episode that introduces Lwaxana Troi and reintroduces Major Barrett to Star Trek after she's played all these other roles. And Major Barrett was, of course, married to Gene Roddenberry. I like Lwaxana Troi. I like how much humor she brings, not just to this episode, but to Star Trek in general, because she was like, kind of like the Q character. She was a little irreverent, and Star Trek can be quite stuffy, and for her to come in and kind of like stir it up, it was always refreshing.
It livened things up.
Must he do that?
As you well know, it is the Beta Z way of giving thanks for the food we eat.
You giving thanks? Besides, you never did this before.
I do it now.
I was gonna ask, what did you guys think of the battle between the mothers? Like, they hated each other?
This is where I thought that this episode was played better for me this time around. Is that, well, I guess I looked it up, and I mean, yeah, it's written by Tracy Tomei, and there's a story by, I can't remember his name right now, but yeah, he was a writer on the Love Boat, I guess. And this does come off as a Love Boat type episode. And I think that the reason why this plays better than some of the others, like acting wise, I find they got some decent character actors from the time, from, you know, that time. And it feels like, you know, a situation like, well, a sitcom, really, a sitcom, or like a Love Boat episode where, you know, I feel like the writers probably came from that kind of background, and they're more comfortable writing people with those kind of personalities. Therefore, because I find, like, when they're doing straight science fiction in these early episodes, like, the dialogue is very stilted and it's all clunky and wooden, and they all sound like automatons half the time. But here it felt much more natural, like you know, a wedding in the 80s. You know, even weddings today, you know, like, you know, families will bicker and all that. So it came off as much more natural. Like, I felt like the interactions, the characters here felt more real to me. You know, I enjoyed that dinner.
Yeah.
There's some good moments there.
My question is why? Like, why did they have that conflict? Like, I don't know if that's ever really explained in the episode. Like, there's some mention of it, but there's nothing concrete. You don't really know why they don't like each other.
Well, that's what I mentioned there when I wrote Lucas the synopsis for this. I put that in there. I'm like, I don't understand why this bonding happened when these two families obviously don't get along. I'm like, why would you betroth your daughter to this guy if you hate this family so much? But there was a little moment there in the turbolift where Lwaxana says, like, oh, she's really changed since the last time I met her. So maybe at one point they were.
It was Deanna's father who arranged the marriage because he was friends with Steve Miller. And the son of Steve Miller is Wyatt. So, like, I think that's why the families are put together.
It's a Betazoid custom, though, so Lwaxana must have had some sort of influence in its because if they're both human, why would they?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's there for the comedic effect. I don't think it's necessarily going to be explained in episode. But I think I wanted to agree with you, Alan, that I also felt like the dialogue was a lot more natural in this episode. And so I did actually really enjoy that aspect of it. And I think it's really hard to do like just straight science fiction. And because sci-fi, I feel like is kind of just usually defined by its setting or its time or the technology used, but not necessarily like how people talk. So I feel like when there's sci-fi plus comedy or sci-fi plus horror or sci-fi plus western, then things become a lot more exciting than when you try to go with just sci-fi. Or a lot more interesting, I mean. So, like, this episode was kind of sci-fi plus comedy, which I really enjoyed.
TV writers are typically more used to those genres, so, that's
so I really like the Star Trek episodes that incorporate kind of another genre. I like the scary Star Trek episodes. Like, so I guess that, because it's Star Trek, so it's still sci-fi, but then they're incorporating elements from different genres. That's what makes this episode more interesting, is because there's more of a comedic aspect, which makes the characters, I suppose, more relatable. Like, I think the whole dynamic between like Wyatt's mother and Deanna's mother, I think it was supposed to be relatable because I feel like everyone can relate to like having like a family gathering, and there's always relatives or parents-in-law that don't like each other. Like, I think it was just, I don't know, I think it was a good aspect of the episode.
What are you talking about? Our family, they get along all the time.
That's true. I wasn't saying me. I was just saying people.
The bride and groom go naked? All guests must go unclothed. It honors the act of love being celebrated.
I always thought that Lwaxana Troi was trying to sabotage the wedding to a certain degree. Like, and I don't actually think that's the case, but I always felt like she was subtly trying to make things difficult so that it wouldn't work out, because she knew that they weren't a good match. But that's more subtextual. I don't think they actually, I don't think they really played that out. But I think that made much more sense to me.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but that makes much more sense. And I think I don't know if it's in other episodes, but she definitely has this kind of vibe going on where she's playing kind of the buffoon, but she's wiser. And you see a little bit in this episode when she's talking to Wyatt and explaining, why he would have had the visions of whatever the 80s bombshell woman was. And so that totally makes sense. She could have like been kind of like the wiser character from the beginning, who's just being like a Jar Jar Binks all the way through,
Yeah, and I think that makes her much more interesting. I've never really liked her character, but this episode, watching it again, I really was like, oh, she's kind of complicated. Like, there's a lot going on there.
She plays the overbearing mother quite nicely.
Mm-hmm.
She does, yeah.
If she was my mom, I would be so irritated. I was watching the episode and I really enjoyed it, and I was laughing and having a great time. And there was like 5% of me that was like so pissed off the whole time.
Well, imagine having a mom that could read your mind at all times.
And just being so annoying, like just purposely like making everything awkward and making everything the worst. Like she was like a child.
I think there was a missed opportunity there too, because like Troy's throughout her mother beaming up and embarrassing her in front of Captain Picard and all that, and then going on and well, yeah, just generally being annoying and being embarrassing. Is she's holding that chameleon rose the whole time, the one that the mood rose. And I'm like, I just wish that when her mother started running her mouth and embarrassing her in front of Picard, that it went from white to just black.
It just starts dying in her hands.
Yeah, it just stays white the whole time. And I'm like, oh, there's a missed opportunity there. That would have been great. It's like,
they didn't have the budget.
I guess not.
Excuse me for a second. I'm going to go vomit jewels.
Mother, it's quite inappropriate to
Yes, you do seem to be having difficulty. A man your age must work to keep himself in shape.
Mother, I'm not going another step like this.
And I love the suitcase gag.
Oh yeah. It showed Patrick Stewart, has some comedy chops too, because his character is very stuffy in that first season, and him having to struggle to lug that heavy case, and then when he gets dismissed, he's like backs away. There's so many little Picard moments there.
Yeah, you kind of forget how good he is at comedy until you see that, and you're like, oh man.
Yeah, I love exactly that moment too when he does the little bow. You may go. My only complaint about the suitcase gag is I wish that they would actually weigh down that suitcase, because it's like the actors have to pretend so hard like the thing's heavy and it's obviously made out of styrofoam.
and filled with clothes.
I know. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that I was like, it's just filled with clothes. That's it. There's nothing in there.
I know she's unpacking it. It's just like little dresses and things. I'm like, what? They make Picard look like a weakling.
And I like the other running gag with Lwaxana Troi reading men's thoughts and describing their thoughts as pornographic.
Whatever happened to Mr. Zillo?
Oh, I was forced to terminate his employment. Zillo was strongly attracted to me. His thoughts became truly pornographic.
I know she kind of embarrasses Picard at the end there. It's like, oh, your captain thinks I'm sexy too, or whatever he says. She says. He's like,
Captain? Even Zillo never had such thoughts about me. You may energize.
No, because she's like, oh, like your captain's thoughts about me are pornographic too, and then she leaves, and Deanna's like, oh, that's her idea of a joke or humor.
I was not amused.
Okay, what did everybody think of Wyatt?
What did you think of Wyatt? That's what I want.
Oh, what did I think of Wyatt? The first thing that I thought of Wyatt, I was like, hey, that's the actor from Prison Break. And in Prison Break, his name is Teabag.
Well, he always plays a jerk or a villain, doesn't he?
He does, yeah, he does. At some point, there was a switch.
My first thought was like, oh, that's the villain from season 2 of Heroes.
Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's true. I actually liked him. I thought, when you first meet him as a character, you're like, oh, this guy's going to be like some wimpy milquetoast thing, and he's going to have to fight it out with Riker for Troi's affections, and it did not go that way at all, so I was totally happy about that. And he was actually a good, really interesting...
Just a regular, decent dude.
Exactly. Like a really interesting, decent character.
He was a little obsessed with his drawings, though. Why is he always carrying them around? I don't know.
What we find out later in the episode.
I know, right?
I really like that whole plot of him having this sort of predestination of having dreamt this woman, and I don't know who said it earlier, but it's never explained. But I like that it's never explained, and I noticed more and more, especially in these earlier episodes, how there's ideas or concepts that aren't explained. It's just like the mystery of space. Mm-hmm. Even in this episode, when they start off, when Picard does his log, he's talking about how Haven is known throughout the galaxy as a place for mystical healing, and and that's basically what happens. Those people with the predestination, they end up there at the same time as Wyatt's there, and he's going to heal them. So
that made no sense either, because again, there was no explanation, because Troi and the Enterprise just happen to come to this planet where her family is waiting, and she doesn't realize that they're there, as I said earlier. And then it just so happens that these aliens arrive with a broken spaceship at the exact same time. And they also have a connection to these people just hanging out on this planet waiting to get married. And it's like...
No, but they went there because... No, they went there because they knew Wyatt was going to be there.
But they have a broken spaceship, though. So how did they know they were going to get there in time?
Well, they didn't. I mean, the episode. I like the episode because it's kind of, I know that it's kind of cheesy.
It's like they started their journey and they're like, well, we're going to set course to this planet, and it's like, okay, well, if we go warp 9, we'll be there, oh, I feel that he's going to be there in December 19th or whatever. And it's like, well, if we set our speed to this, but then their spaceship is broken. So I'm like, oh, well, I guess we're not going to get there on time. And then, but, it made no sense that they all got there at the exact same time.
Haven't you seen Battlestar Galactica Season 4? How does Starbuck meet Leoben in the middle of space?
Dude, don't even talk about Battlestar Galactica. Like, it's
destiny. It's destiny.
Yeah, well, there was a mystical quality to Battlestar Galactica, so I don't read too much into that. But we're talking about Star Trek here, and their logic.
Wait, hold on. I need to do a parentheses here. What's your problem, Amir?
My problem?
He doesn't like the Angel Starbuck.
No. I mean, I love Battlestar Galactica. I think it's a great show, but a lot of it didn't make any sense. And the last season of Battlestar Galactica is like the last season of Lost, where you're promised answers and you don't get any. And the answers that you do get are terrible answers. So I remember reading an interview with Ronald Moore about this problem. You guys probably read it too, where he's like, we had so many threads and storylines and I couldn't figure out how to tie them all together. And then one night I was taking a shower and then I realized it doesn't matter. And then I was like, oh. And then he goes into the writer's room the next day and he's like, the storylines don't need to tie together. It's all about characters. And then I was like, oh, okay, well that explains a lot. He just kind of took a mulligan. He was like, whatever, I can't figure this out.
Yes, that was puzzling. A woman out of another place who insists that she knows you and whom you've dreamed of all these years.
I mean, like, I was also a little annoyed because I wanted answers about Wyatt, like, why the Trellians knew about him, why he dreamt of the Trellians in return. But then I realized it's almost like he was kind of like a prophecy, like maybe the Trellians had some kind of prophecy where like there's going to be, someone to save us. It's Wyatt, and so it's almost like we're kind of a third party witnessing like a prophecy come true, but like we're just not really involved in it. Because for Wyatt, that's crazy. Like he changed his whole life. Like he saw the woman he's been seeing in his dreams forever. The Trellians were like, we've been searching for him. He's gonna cure us of this virus that we also have.
Well, I like the plot of the and the plight of the Terrellians. I got a feeling that this might have been an allegory. I mean, it wasn't as in depth as it might have could have been, but like maybe the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. Where we had these people, and it was interesting too because there was actually quite a bit of like world building here too in their conference where they talk about the history around this species and
that conference is like the worst conference in Star Trek history.
Go on with your briefing, Mr. Data.
Torella was Class M, much like your Earth, with similar humanoid life forms. Unfortunately, they faced the old story of hatred overpowering intelligence.
There were hostilities?
Between the inhabitants of their two land masses, resulting in one group unleashing a deadly biological weapon on the other.
And in the end, the other becoming infected as well. Makes one question the sanity of humanoid forms.
But I appreciate the fact that they established that this alien is well known and that they have this history, and it just helped, because there hasn't been a whole lot of world building, in Next Generation so far, with some of the background of history and politics of what's been going on, in the last 80 years or whatever since the original series.
Make a really good point there about, not just about how good the backstory is, but also what you're saying about it being allegory. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think it rings true to me.
I agree, Alan. I love the world building. I think that made a lot of sense. The one thing that I don't understand is the idea that they are not actually contagious anymore. So Wyatt can go over there and be okay. So Wyatt's going to go over there, be infected, and then die because he doesn't have natural immunity.
Well, he took two little cases with him. That's going to cure everything. Did you see that? He grabbed those and then he
right.
incapacitated the transporter chief, and then he made off with his like two little cases. And like, this is all I need.
This is right. Yeah. Sorry. No. Yeah. I forgot about that. So I think for me, that's kind of the only thing where I was just like,
He didn't need to pack clothes or anything, a toothbrush. He just needed those 2 little things of medicine. He was good to start a new life.
Because he's going to die there. He's going to die on that ship, right?
But not if he finds the cure first.
But he's going to fulfill their prophecy, so...
Exactly.
Okay. See, the more I think about it, the more I'm not liking this, because it basically means that they've sentenced him to death if he doesn't find a cure for the 8 people that are on that ship.
Don't you understand, Amir? It's his destiny.
Yes.
He's embracing his destiny. He's going to go over there. He's going to cure them. He's going to cure himself. Everything's been great.
His picture was drawn on several Hallmark plates on the wall. Some collector plates were on the wall with his picture on it. You know, they know he's coming to save them. He's their Jesus.
He's their Jesus.
Or their Dr. Quinn medicine woman. I don't know.
Personal Jesus.
What were you saying, Amir?
No, that's it. That's the only thing I don't. And I thought that they could cure people using the transporter. Am I making that up? I guess they need like a pattern, an original pattern for that to work, right?
Yeah, are you saying that because of Lonely Among Us when Picard was like reassembled? And...
No, I remember there being an episode where they cured somebody using the transporter.
That was second season, with the old age disease.
That's the one. Yeah, there you go.
With the climax. Oh, wow, I
can't wait to get to that one. Oh, yeah. God, that was so bad. Anyway.
With Pulaski. I love Pulaski.
So wait, so Lola, were you going to say something?
I have to go to the bathroom.
Are the Oscars in the bathroom? Is that what's happening?
I know, I do. It just, I just. This is a big mug, and it was full of tea. You guys can keep talking. I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. So sorry. I know, Lola, you have to watch the Oscars and go to the bathroom, but I do have one additional moment. There's a moment that I really like in the scene where they're all having dinner, that after party, and Troi has her blow up and she leaves and she knocks over the gong, which is hilarious, and then she leaves. But then they go to Tasha, and she just has like this little, she just laughs like a little bit, and I was like, oh, that's totally so in line with her character. It's such a great little moment for her because, you know, she's like, she can't hold her emotions in, and she's just loving the chaos.
I like that moment too, and Data. I like how some characters are kind of outside of it, looking in, like Tasha and Data, and other people are kind of like are in the midst of it, and then you have like the innocent bystander, like Picard, who's always right in the middle and just being like.
Yes, I like Data. Please continue the petty bickering. I find it fascinating.
And what's great about that is everybody's reaction. You get an eye roll from Picard, and you get
I know Picard tells him to stop hovering around because he's kind of buzzing around the room, just taking it all in. It's a great moment for Data to learn about, how humans behave. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a nice family dinner that has this it's like an awkward Thanksgiving dinner, right? Where family members that you don't really get along with happen to be there, and they're all just trying to keep it all in, and then suddenly everything comes out.
Suddenly the pet plant attacks the other people at the table.
Yeah, that's right.
It's probably the best Star Trek dinner scene. The only other one being the one with the Klingons in Star Trek 6. That's what it reminded me of. It was a similar kind of. I really like dinner scenes, and
yeah, it makes people feel a lot more human because we all
really
eat
does.
dinner.
That's right. We all eat dinner, and most of the time we don't want to be there.
And we argue with the people around the table.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. They say that Holm can't talk, and then he'll do like the ceremony in sign language, but then at the end of the episode he talks and he says, "Thanks for all the drinks."
Well, did they say he couldn't talk, or he just doesn't talk?
I think they said Holm can't talk, and then she says she does. Oh, I guess it's like Steve Miller says Holm can't talk, so he doesn't really know. And then Lwaxana, who is a ship disturber, just kind of goes along with it, and then she just makes something up, which is he'll do it in sign language. Maybe I think the more I think about it, the more I think you're right, Namir.
But also, someone asks him like he's drinking and he's like swaying. I don't remember which character asks him, but like they were like, "Oh, like do you happen to have any human in your lineage?" And he like doesn't answer.
That was Data. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just sort of like doesn't answer, avoids the question. So maybe like
he's like.
So maybe he has some human in him, so he can talk, but he relies on, I don't know what species he is, but he relies on, you know, perhaps the idea that he can't talk just so he doesn't have to.
They're the mutants. The mutants. Get it? The mutants.
I get it.
I don't get it. I'm not sure I want to.
Oh, like they're mute?
Oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
What time is the Oscars? I wasn't going to watch it, but I think maybe I will now.
No, it's already started.
Okay, so I have a question. When they go on the holodeck and they're on that desert planet set, are they on the hide and Q planet set?
Obviously.
Oh no, but we just said that they hadn't. That episode was filmed way before hide and Q.
Well, that was just their generic planet set. It was like the styrofoam rocks and the painted
and then
sand.
And then the rear projection sky, whatever. I always thought it was like supposed to be like a location that was meaningful to both Troi and Riker. Like the beach where they first called each other Mzadi or something.
The styrofoam rocks on which they first made love.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't gonna go there. But now we have to
think about it.
Riker is such a baby.
Oh, there was some really soapy acting. Like, was Jonathan Frakes a soap opera actor before this?
I think he was.
But that felt very soap opera-ish. Like when they're in Picard's ready room and it's like, I don't know what to think about this. Like the whole, it felt, the acting was weird and it felt like a soap opera.
What I love is the full lean on the wall.
Oh yeah. It was so melodramatic.
Well, again, he's not supposed to come out, looking well from this episode. I think he's supposed to be kind of like a little childish and kind of lame, and you really get that feeling.
I want to say that I love the bridge of the Troian ship. It's got this like 80s psychedelic disco thing going on. Like amazing.
It was a very alien ship, yeah, and the model is great too. I love that glowing.
Okay, wait a second. Okay, I have a question. Did they? So I'm watching these on Netflix. Did they go back and mess around with the special effects?
Yeah, these are all remastered in HD.
No. But not only that, did they go and did they upgrade and did they toss in like CG for any of the ships or anything?
Anything that was originally like a CG shot, they probably touched up. Like there are parts in the series that were used CGI, like Galaxy's Child with the space baby and stuff like that. So they had to redo that stuff, but
not the ships, right? Because there's this one moment that really sticks out. Like first of all, the ship looks.
They probably
CG.
have to redo that ball, but the ship, the model itself, would be the original filmed elements.
What?
Okay, let's do our rating. Let's start with Alan.
So yeah, again, this is not one of my favorite outings, obviously, but I do enjoy it for what it is. So I think I'm somewhere in probably like a 6 on this, 6 out of 10 starships. Basically, it has a lot of cliches, but it has a lot of great moments and some fun gags, and I had a good time watching it. But yeah, it's not top tier Next Generation, but
it's not top shelf.
No, it's but I have fun watching it, so I'll give it a 6. Did I say 6? 6.5? I can't remember. 6. We'll give it 6. 6 out of 10 starships.
I think that I'm going to give this episode 3 out of 5 starships, which is also 6 out of 10, because I enjoyed this kind of sitcom comedic aspect of the episode. I liked Deanna's mother. As like a Deanna episode, it was good because we kind of learned more about her and kind of about like the Betazoids. However, I thought Haven, like the titular planet, wasn't like involved enough. Like it didn't really seem relevant to kind of like the core of the story, which is like about arranged marriage and everything. So and the Torellians, like it could have taken place anywhere else and it still would have made sense. So for those reasons, I will give it 3 out of 5.
So I think I liked it. Obviously, I liked the episode. It was one of those episodes where it was kind of about the journey, and the arc up until the ending. So the ending really didn't matter, but a lot of great character moments, a lot of great scenes. It was funny. It never felt slow. Majel Barrett was great, and I always compare Next Generation episodes to Code of Honor and Naked Now. And was it better than Code of Honor? Yes, obviously, by a lot. So I'm going to give it probably a... Alan, you gave it a 6.8?
I gave it a 6.
You gave it oh man, I don't want to give it the same as Alan. I feel like that's not...
I give it the same as Alan too.
Consistent.
I thought we were feeling the same way on this one for once.
We did. Okay, yeah. You know what? I'm on Alan's page here. I'm gonna give it a 6. I liked it.
I agree with all of you, and I would typically give it a 6, but I think I'm actually going to give it a 7 because not that it's a must-watch, essential Star Trek: The Next Generation episode, but I think it's the first. First of all, it's a great watch. So I think that anybody can watch this episode and enjoy it. So that's like a 7. But also, it's the first episode that kind of breaks the mold of the stuffiness. And I mean, Naked Now notwithstanding, but Naked Now was different because they were infected by a virus that made them drunk and be silly, and it also it was kind of a ridiculous episode, and it was kind of unrealistic. Like as opposed to this episode, it felt very human, and the acting wasn't stuffy or formal, and there wasn't overacting. It actually worked out really well. It was like a nice little. So I'm going to give it a 7. But that's it. That for our review this week of Haven, episode 11 of season 1, The Next Generation. And we'll be back next week to do the next episode, which is The Big Goodbye. The Big Goodbye.
I don't know if I'm going to like that one. I don't like it when Picard turns into a private eye.
What are you talking about? Namir is insane.
That's like one of the best episodes of the first season.
One of the best episodes of the whole season.
I don't think so. We'll see.
One of the best episodes of Next Generation, period. Anyway,
I don't know about that.
We'll save this debate for next week. Until next week. Make it so.
Why did you have to put on sunglasses for that? Are you doing a David Caruso thing?
Very cool.
He takes the sunglasses off and says his line.
I thought you did erase our memory like the Men in Black thing.